Okay, we're back in business.
We're back in business. Yes.
Town engineer, Mr. Famik.
Now, this group of folks behind us is really the core group of people that get things done for the town. Between the park and rec and the town engineer and public works, building maintenance, everything, this is the group. So we kind of take this all together. The town engineer is here. You know, Victor, has everyone met Victor? Victor Bene. Victor, by the way, came in third in the chili contest last year at the, well behind some other people who were involved in the contest.
So he doesn't get a raise this year.
He's there, he's oversees the staff with the civil engineer, which is part-time, partly funded by the Water and Sewer Commission at 40%. And then the admin assistant, and then the inspector is Gary. And you see that represents the salary line item. The rest of the items are pretty much the same. Now, I did, I believe, give you copies of the work that all these departments do. Do you have those copies? The jobs and stuff? I gave it to you a couple meetings ago.
They were in the front of the book.
But if you don't have them, I'll get them to you again before you.
I don't remember receiving
You
them.
know?
Are you, Paul, pictures?
No,
No.
not pictures, they were sheets. Yeah, all right. Bill will make the copies of them.
Just don't use Leslie's budget.
That's right.
So,
Email them to us.
now, all of these are under the direction of Joe Bergaw. You all met Joe? Joe is our new Public Works Director, and he is gradually coming into each of these budgets and fine-tuning them with a fine-tooth comb and, you know, putting his own stamp on them, which will take a few more months, but he's done a very good job working his way into the program at a very rapid pace, and he's done an excellent job, so we're very impressed with his abilities too. So I don't know if you want to have anything to say with this budget, or yeah, how you're utilizing him, or
Well,
what you would.
I came on board in November, and there was a long list of projects that the town was working on. The way the team is set up, we still have a lot of projects. We have the boardwalk, we have the the streetscape that's going to be coming up Penn Ave. We have the vet's bathroom, the bathroom at the vet's park. There's a long list of jobs, and these guys are chugging along. Where some of our guys are also working on some water and sewer projects. As you heard, there's a division where the civil engineer is 40% of his salary goes to water and sewer. We're trying to do some things on the water and sewer end. So there's tons of things going on down there. It's chugging away, and we're going to keep moving along with these projects.
And having this department saves us money that otherwise we would have to go out and hire consultants for all these projects. So the amount that we pay for the total department salary line item would be exceeded, I'm sure, if we had to go out and get a consultant to do that work for the steep grants, for the boardwalk, for the road design, for any of that stuff. So this is a valuable tool for us to get things done, not only timely, but efficiently as well. So, and Victor is here to answer any specific questions that you might have.
Engineer inspector, can you define those duties to me?
We have a guy that goes out, and if there's a road paving job being done with catch basins or whatever, he'll inspect that to make sure that it's done to the right specifications. Whenever the steep grant paid for the renovation of Nyack Main Street, he was on Main Street to make sure that the granite curbs were set in the right places, the street lights. He's our eyes and ears on all these jobs on the road, and you know, he's pretty good at getting that stuff done. I don't know. Want to add anything? That's Gary Hyanka. He's been here.
Salary on that line item has increased since 2013 actuals by almost $9,000, 8793.
And the reason for that was a union position at that time, and he was subject to overtime. So what, he asked to be taken out of the union, so we were able to work a deal with the union, take him out, and so we incorporated a specific number in overtime into his salary to make it fair and palatable, and then that's why the increase.
Is there a revenue side to his inspection work that Gary does that comes in?
Well, only in the sense that, for example, the steep grant funding that came in, that's in the overall job, but not I don't think so.
Okay.
I wouldn't characterize it really as a revenue, would you? Not really.
No? Okay.
He saves us money in that he sees what's going on. If something needs to be done, he holds these guys' feet to the fire, so.
Mhm.
And he works directly for the engineer, so.
I have a question regarding the numbers, the salary numbers themselves, because when I look at the supporting documentation, it says 2014-15 to be determined funding is in Department 120. So I think there's $75,000 in there. So is that number going to increase based on subsequent actions that we take? I don't understand that comment.
Salary to be determined, funding is in Department 120. Oh, that just means that when the Board of Selectmen, if I'm correct, when the Board of Selectmen determine the raises for the non-union personnel, which includes the department heads, we've put that in the labor contingency money. So we have 2 contracts that I'm doing, the police and the fire. And then any raises that are decided on by the Board of Selectmen, which is a committee made up of Mr. Nickerson and Ms. Hardy. They interview the department heads and come up and say the cost of living increase this year is, say 2%. Any of that dollars is in the labor contingency. So the number is the same as it was. Here, maybe you should explain.
Okay.
Because
So
that's where
Yeah.
120.
it's always, it's confusing, I know. In the current fiscal year, the Board of Selectmen approved the COLAs for non-union employees, and so the increases have been implemented. However, they don't get funded until at the end of the fiscal year when we do a transfer from the contingency account. So that's why you see the increase that shows from 14 to 15 is the 2.5% that non-union employees received during this fiscal year, reflected in 15 budget. So whatever increase that the Board of Selectmen approves would be in addition to that, what's reflected in the 15.
That was my question.
Yeah.
So this, just not to pick on anyone or any, but just for
Right.
clarity. Just for clarity, so we could expect that 83,979, for example, to increase?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and what is the timing of that?
Well, it's dependent upon when the Board of Selectmen takes action, and there, unfortunately, is not a consistent time in the year when it gets accomplished.
We do it right, we do it kind of right after the beginning of the budget process is over. They begin to talk about it, but it's effective usually around July 1, and then they meet, there's a group of department heads. I think Mr. Putnam was the one who spearheaded the negotiations last year, so they met with Ms. Hardy and Mr. Nickerson, and then they came up with that number. But we've already anticipated that number and put it in Department 120 in the labor contingency, along with the increase in the public safety contracts that we'll be negotiating.
So in July, or at some point, there'll be a transfer from the contingency fund to cover when there's a meeting with
We
the
just
department
add-
heads and
So
Board of
let's say
Selectmen
if
members.
every
Right.
department head got a $500 raise, then Anna would go in and change every department head's number by that 500 to reflect the correct number.
On July 1 of last year, July 1 of fiscal year 2014,
This
Okay.
year that we're in.
this year, this fiscal year, the town engineer was making 81.9 and some change. We project that on July 1 of fiscal 2015, that would increase by 2.5%, up to the 83.9. But it could still increase further than that? Is that what we just said?
The current salary is 83,979. It just has not been, the transfer has not been implemented from the the payroll contingency to the line items at this point in time. So that's why you see that there's an increase. So the salary reflected in 14-15 is the salary that the employee is currently making.
And Anna has her reasons, she could tell you why she doesn't do it in the beginning of the year and she does it at the end of the year. And I think that's what's confusing. She does it with all the other adjustments. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
It's just a little confusing to fund something before, it's approved, so to speak.
Well, we're paying that now, though, right?
Yeah.
For 6 months, give or take, and
So
then
you're-
it,
We typically do the transfer during the last 3 months of the fiscal year.
Right.
As a matter of process. And that's what makes it confusing here. But the employee is currently making the salary that's reflected in the 14-15 column.
So if we go down to town engineering department total, the 256,758 will increase.
It will increase, say it's 2%. It will increase by 2%. It will be reflected on that 211 town engineer line item. But the money will come from 120 contingency, labor
The
contingency.
money's already
Right.
in there.
Right. Got it.
Okay, so it's not coming in addition to anything else, it's just being transferred. And that same process happened on the 81,930 last July or August, but the money has not been transferred per book yet.
right.
So
Gabish? No,
Yeah,
Gabish?
little bit.
The,
Also,
the
then,
current salary in this year is 83,979.
right, so what was the figure in the amended budget for 2014 was actually what was paid out the year before. What you're saying is there's a lag.
There's a lag. Anna does that the last 3 months of the year, she transfers it, but the money is in the budget, it's in the labor contingency, it's available to be moved over. So the current salary of 83,979 is what we're starting with, just as if we're in contract negotiations. The police and fire, those numbers are the same as they are this year. Whatever that is determined to be won't affect
Right.
anything that you guys do, because it's in 120 labor contingency, and we'll just distribute it accordingly to the line items necessary.
Understood was, why did that increase by 76% then from last year, the contingency fund? Seems like is that due to more
The
employees?
labor contingency fund we didn't have contract negotiations last year.
The union
We had
contracts
it.
are up.
This year, we have police contract negotiations, we have fire contract negotiations, and then the non-union is always in there. Because the police and fire may be on a 4-year contract, public works may be on a 4-year contract or a 3-year contract, dispatchers, 3-year contract. The non-union employees are dealt with each and every year.
Mm-hmm.
So that item gets figured in. So the labor contingency always has at least that in it. But this year, we've added a potential increase for police and fire, so that's why the number of labor contingency is higher this year than last year, which I believe was your question, right?
Okay.
Now, next year, we'll have public works, I think, and dispatch, so public.
So if everything's on a rotating basis, I wouldn't expect to see it jump 76% every year.
No, no,
Okay.
because let's say this year, whatever we do with the police, they've proposed a 4-year contract.
Mhm.
So once we decide what it is, and it's 3% a year, 2% a year, whatever it is, then Anna will know, and then those numbers will come in at the right number every year for the next 4 years, and labor contingency won't be needed to support those numbers.
Okay.
But next year, we have a 3-member dispatch, or 4-member dispatch union, so their labor contingency is gonna be at 3%, much less because of the 4 people. So but the public works folks have more people, so we'll have to multiply whatever that is, and then we kind of tuck it in the labor contingency. And we hope we don't spend it, but it gives me something that we think about where we can go.
Okay. All right.
Hey, any other questions for town engineer?
So if we want to get rid of him, now's the year to do it. Is that right, Victor?
So let's go to building maintenance
If he
113.
keeps making chili like that, we may have.
That's right. We may have to cut him back.
Where are you going now?
113, building maintenance.
Building maintenance, okay. This is, the salaries generally reflect the custodial team, and Ron Bentz is the head, this is the chief custodian or the building maintenance supervisor. And then this also talks about service contracts, and it carries the expenses for the utilities, both in terms of supplies and telephone and electricity. This is the number, I think, that, if you go down, service contracts, Joe will provide you specific information on that. You see the adjustment down for building maintenance. I think he moved some line items around, but I'll let him speak to that as he's beginning to go through and kind of put his stamp on how to do the budget. But last year in electricity, I believe we cut money in this process off electricity, and we found that, we were short, so we're putting the number back up to be more reflective of the actual. And then the same thing with heating oil and propane. Heating oil was up a little bit, and propane was up a lot from where we started the year. So you'll see that I think we took 5,000 out of that last year and 10,000 out of electricity during the budget process, and it is what it is. So we kind of went back to that number, and I can let Joe speak to the service contracts or any of the other items. Now the salary, Anna, is at the same deal. We're not, the 193 is unadjusted.
208,
No, that's,
208, 889.
See the,
we added the additional custodial hours. Okay.
my fault, that was my fault, I forgot. What we're doing on the custodial hours is that we have, and I remember explaining this to somebody, so if I explained it to you already, let me know. But we've added, we have a very talented custodian who works here in Town Hall, George. You've seen him walk around here. He's a talented carpenter and has been able to do a number of projects like this booth, not booth, what do you call this, whatever the desk is, the table. He's been able to do that, plus a number of other things that he has built around here. And so what we're proposing to save money throughout the town is to give him a number of hours each week to do that. So we're giving him, I believe, 8 or 10 hours, 10 hours of a week of upgrade hours for skilled custodians. So we're giving him a little more money to reflect his talents as a carpenter for 10 hours a week, but we'll move him around all the buildings to take care of those projects. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he's gonna go 10 hours everywhere. He might do one project where he'll work days for 30 hours to get something done. For example, if you go down and look at the dock where the Blackhawk is, you'll see that that's all redone. He and Ron did that. Now, if we had to bring somebody in to do that, it would have cost us 4 times the amount of money to get that work done. So I think he and Ron and one other person did that. So
So that's what you mean by upgrade hours, because it's more of a skilled
right, he gets
activity than his, okay.
$2,064, which represents an hourly upcharge to his regular custodian hour. And he knows that whenever he's assigned that job, he gets that, which is just a fair way to do it. It's still cheaper than going out onto the street and hiring a carpenter. So then in order to cover the 10 hours, we increased the custodial person, the 10 hours, he may not be here those 10 hours, so we don't want to pay him overtime on that. So we'll take the 10 hours from here, we'll upgrade another custodian to pick those up. So that's why that number is 7.94%. And I had forgotten that, thank you.
Very, very clever.
I do have a question under service contracts. Why do we have line item 295 based on the discussion we had in our last meeting about paying the water
Right.
department for fire hydrants?
Yeah,
Well, that
that
is-
shows it going to the water and sewer department at the fire hydrant charge.
That 295 is for hydrant fees, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. And that's been my argument to the water and sewer folks, that we shouldn't pay any more than that. They're arguing it should go back up to the 98 levels of $75,000.
I was trying to argue we ought to pay less.
And I would support you on that, so, you know.
Thank you.
Now, did you ask about service contracts, or did you just ask about?
That was
Oh,
the
okay.
question under service
That was
contracts,
the one, okay.
under services contracted.
With regards to the service contract line, 216,
Mm-hmm.
when I started breaking apart the budget and taking a look at that line, I tried to pull it all out, and in that line, let me see my spreadsheet here. I started looking at all the service contracts that we had. Now, the service contracts we have are for HVAC, for all the different buildings. We do preventative maintenance, and that's the best way so that you don't have all the emergency repairs. Security for all the different buildings, overhead doors for all the garages at the field service building, the sprinkler systems at the community center, the field service in the field service building, and all the pest control at the different things. When I started looking at what we're paying and putting it all in a spreadsheet, we were paying $49,050 for service contracts, but we were funded at 42. So what I try to put in a lot of these budgets is the money where it's supposed to be. So I can give you a list of everything that we have, but those are things that we get paid, we get billed that amount. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not gonna be working on trying to get these service contracts down lower. I just can't guarantee that right now. But I just got this, so I'm just trying to first saying, this is what we're paying. I'm trying to meet with some of these vendors to try to cut the cost, but that's what we're paying, so that's what it should be reflected. You do see on this budget, the building maintenance did go down, and the big portion of that, so the line item number 222 went down by 5,800, if I did the,
Yes.
5,600, I'm sorry. That was because all the pest control and some of the stuff in service contracts, we're paying out of building maintenance. So I know it's kind of moving money back and forth, but it's really assigning the money to the right place. And the one last thing about the custodians that Mr. Formica was talking about is Ron Bentz, our building maintenance supervisor, gave me a long honey-do list of all the projects that he had, and it's a few pages long. So we already have all those projects identified. The problem is, on any given day, he's running around with supplies and doing all the things, so he can't do this. So if we can get Ron and George working together one day a week, they can get a lot done. And we have all kinds of things that they, so it's not like we're just, imagining things. There's a list of all the things that we like to start pecking away at and getting this stuff done. So, there's DS here and all these things that we can get done. People start seeing that, and it's a value add to the town if we can start doing these things. Right now, we don't have the capability because we don't have the time.
Thank you.
Any other questions under this line item, maintenance of town buildings?
No? No,
Mr.
I'm
Harney?
fine.
No.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to 317, Public Works.
Everybody there? So again, this is the go-to department. You'll see that it's a slight increase from adopted, but a decrease from amended. We have finally gotten our Public Works Director, on board after the passing of Mike, so this reflects that, and that is Joe, and what we've done is taken Joe's salary, 25%, and Bill's salary, who is now the Deputy Director of Public Works, and put 25% of each of their salaries in the water and sewer line. So water and sewer is picking those salaries up, as they used to pick up 50% of Mike's salary way back when. So after Mike passed, we had a year and a half of trying to reorganize what's going on. And, I often don't like to just replace people when they go, especially if they've been there 10, 12 years, without really looking at the department and see how the needs have changed over time. So in this case, Bill stepped up for about a year and acting Public Works until Joe came on board. We really found the need with water and sewer has increased, so we have put some of their salary in each of theirs, along with, you saw the civil engineer. And then there's been a huge amount of work, here certainly through the winter, and then, with all the roads and things that we do, and some of the new techniques we're employing to surface those roads and make them last, as well as a lot of the other projects that we oversee, like most of the capital expenditure projects. We just finished up, or are finishing up the boat launch repair down there off Grand Street? Off Grand Street, and we're out looking at all that stuff. Chuck, who is the supervisor of highways and manages the day-to-day operations of the staff at the field service building, has done a remarkable job with that, keeping those guys moving, and also he's our fleet manager, and he manages all of the fleet purchasing. He takes some of the older vehicles and takes them to auction and manages that. He coordinates all of that. And in the new field service building, I don't know if you've been there or not, you should take a ride up there and let Chuck give you the opportunity to tour that facility. We have 3 mechanics bays there. One, Dave Putnam has for the use of Park and Rec, and it's specifically designed to handle large mowing equipment so that we can work on all of our mowing equipment there, and has lifts designed to pick those up and deal with that. We also have a medium lift for smaller utility vehicles like pickup trucks and whatever, and then we have a lift that can handle the larger vehicles like the dump trucks. And Chuck oversees the mechanics that work there in the 2 departments, and Dave oversees the guys. He has their guys at Park and Rec do the maintenance in there on their stuff. So it's a big upgrade from where we were. We're working on an inventory system there so that all the parts for all the vehicles are the same, and they're inventoried above the office space that we built in that warehouse, so that's secured, and it will be measured and controlled, and Chuck is working on that. That's kind of the basic overview. The only other thing that's in here you might see are tipping fees, and I think tipping fees have gone down a couple of dollars per ton, but I think we're projecting an increase in tonnage as a result of the economic uptick. That usually has a direct result on water supply and use and garbage and all of that. So if you go to page 2, you'll see supplies and miscellaneous is down a little bit. The fleet fuel, we're projecting a $50,000 increase. Joe and I have been watching that very closely in terms of when to lock in. We're coming to the end of a 18 and 12-month